Hey, stop that cat. Man down. Errol Spence speaks. He talks on a variety of things, including Terence Crawford, the relationship with Bob Arum and Bud Crawford. He gave his insight, and he says Bud is almost treated like property by Terence Crawford's own promoter, Bob Arum. I'm about to talk about all that and more in this very video. Stay tuned.
What did you make of Terence Crawford coming to your fight? Were you shocked, or did you didn't care?
No, I wasn't shocked. I mean, I didn't care.
Mm-hmm. And what do you and what do you make of their relationship? Like when you sit down with Jordan or your dad and y'all having Sunday dinner, what do you really think about Bob Arum and Terence Crawford's relationship? I'll buy a new house. He doesn't promote. Like, how do you make of those comments?
I think, Bob, treat him like any owner does athlete. Basically, treat him like he's property or something like that. Like, I feel like he don't really, respect Terence like that, and he just basically trying to get any type of money he can get out of him, he gonna get out of him. And I think, Bob probably frustrated with him, so he said some things, but, I feel like they don't really have a relationship like that. And I feel like a lot of things, Terence Crawford, if somebody say something to him, he's gonna snap back at him. And I feel like with Bob, why he can't snap back at Bob when Bob was saying out, if I say something crazy, he gonna say something crazy back. Somebody say something crazy to him, he gonna say something crazy back. When Bob say something crazy, he say he didn't mean it, or Bob did, so he makes excuses for Bob. That's what I didn't respect about the situation. I'm like, you gotta man up and be your own man, and he's saying all this about you, and you ain't saying nothing. Like, you act like you confused, but let me say something. He gonna go on the Twitter rant.
Gotcha.
That's what I didn't respect about it.
What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang, y'all know what to do. Smash the like button. Listen, I drop daily boxing content, the latest and greatest, all things boxing, this beautiful sport, the sweet science. We in here. 2021 is lit. A lot of good fights to be looking forward to. You can get your news on Pacquiao, Spence, individual fighters, Deontay Wilder, all that and more. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Let's run these numbers up. Now, Errol Spence, you heard the brief clip at the beginning. The link is in the description. Make sure you give Fred from Barbershop Conversations the attention and the viewership for his interview. He has an exclusive with Errol Spence. Now, someone sent me a couple clips from Errol Spence on that show, and Errol was cooking with grease. He had a lot to say. He talked about a lot of different things. He talked about hiring a nutritionist or a dietitian to prepare for the fight you see on screen. Pacquiao, Spence. He did go over Crawford, which is the section that I'm going to talk about in this video. He talked about Jermell Charlo's comments about race don't matter. He says that he knows, Charlo knows that race does matter. And it was good to hear Errol Spence. Errol Spence, he woke, he real, It was good to hear Errol Spence speak so much of the truth. He says race absolutely matters. Being a black man from Texas, he said he was able to discern that probably at a young age, that race absolutely matters, especially in the sport of boxing, which ironically enough, this is stuff that I've told you several times on my channel, several times over. Now, regarding Crawford, let's get into the meat and potatoes. So, Mr. Man Down, stop that cat. Hey, Errol Spence. He did talk about Terence Crawford. And I told you there's a lot of bad news for Terence Crawford. For starters, Errol Spence after not saying anything. Because if you look at Errol Spence, this is probably his this year, and he hasn't even posted too much. You know what I mean? Like, this is January of this year, he posted this. And then if you look too much further, look, you already in 2020. So he ain't like the number one social media guy where he just, or at least at this time in his life, he looked like he's chilling. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4 posts. And then he posted the Pacquiao Spence fight. So the reason this is bad news for Terence Crawford is because it was Terence Bud Crawford's very own team and family who basically suggested that the Pacquiao sweepstakes, Crawford was in it and was going to win it. You know, there were rumors that Pacquiao could fight McGregor. At a point, Ryan Garcia said he was fighting Pacquiao. You had guys like Mikey Garcia who was in the running. And ultimately, Errol Spence won that sweepstakes. So now he has a phenomenal opportunity to face a Hall of Famer senator. He's going to fight me, Manny Pacquiao. But again, the reason this is bad for Terence Crawford is because Crawford's team told you that they were in the running to fight Pacquiao in the Middle East. You know, fight him in Abu Dhabi. Last year, they said that he was in deep negotiations and going to fight in Qatar. Both of which times Crawford didn't actually get the fight. And his name has been attached. He was on the same platform as Pacquiao for several years, but the fight has eluded him. Errol Spence has been with Al Heyman for his career, and Pacquiao recently signed with Al Heyman for the Broner fight and had a multi-fight deal. And within 2 fights, he's fighting Errol Spence Jr. What does that tell you about Terence Crawford? Terence Crawford has been hoodwinked. Terence Crawford has been bamboozled. And again, fans are pressuring him to get those big marquee fights. Now, back to this Errol Spence interview on Fred Barbershop Conversations channel. Very dope stuff. Link in the description, as I mentioned. Check it out. He was asked basically, what did you think of Crawford being at your fight? He said, I didn't really think about that, Errol Spence. I'm just paraphrasing because you guys heard some of it. He said, I wasn't really thinking about that. It didn't really surprise me. It is what it is. And he went on to talk about, he was asked about Crawford and Bob Arum's relationship. And one thing that Errol Spence said was, the irony of Crawford, he says, if I say something about Crawford, there's going to be a whole diatribe and Twitter rant about it. Or if any other fighter. That's the fighter spirit in Crawford. You know, you violate, then he got to demonstrate. But he says the trip about it was when Bob Arum was basically talking greasy and throwing him under the bus, saying I could have bought a house in Beverly Hills. I don't make no money with this kid. He didn't have nothing to say. And he said, oh, that's just Bob being Bob, and almost not necessarily co-signed the comments, but he just had less to say. Ironically enough, Ego Stradamus strikes again. This is exactly precisely for the real ones who follow my channel. This is the same talking point that I said. I said, this is the big issue I had with what Bud Crawford did is you allowed Bob Arum, a Jewish male from New York, right, who's your promoter, who's supposed to be promoting you, and he's almost taking your brand down by doing these interviews with The Athletic, saying, I lose money every time I fight this kid or have this kid fighting somebody, you know? And I thought that was disrespectful. Bob Arum, not only did he say it, he doubled down on it. You know, he said, I'm not saying nothing wrong. They can be mad if they want. And it was Crawford who the whole world of boxing kind of looked at him like, damn, you gonna let him talk to you like that? And yep, Crawford actually did let him talk to him like that. And whether he was frustrated behind the scenes or whatever, he kept that bottled. And people wanted to see, you know, they wanted to see Crawford maybe just have something. I'm not saying you have to violate your promoter or stay in a relationship, but you could have an opinion because Bob Arum's freely giving his opinion. And that's exactly what Errol Spence just said is exactly what I told you. When Gary Russell Jr. had issue with Crawford and was telling stories about how he punched him And then some people were saying this is a sucker punch. Some people were saying that it wasn't, right? Regardless of what happened at that Olympic Center event, when Gary Russell, quote unquote, violated and was trash talking Terence Crawford, Crawford did an interview in his car, and he was like, hey, Gary Russell, if I see you in the streets, we don't even have to fight in the ring. If I see you in the streets, I'll break your neck. And you know this. So Gary Russell is like 126 pounds. He's not even a big dude, but because Gary Russell violated, you've seen this side of Crawford where he said, I'll break your neck. But then when Bob Arum violates, Crawford was mum. Like, you know what I'm saying? He was like almost like a mime. He didn't really have much to say. And people question that choice from Crawford. Like, how you gonna let one person, like, as a fighter, when a fighter violates you, you know, you do it the fighter way. But then Bob Arum violates you, and you just like, oh, that's just Bob being Bob. Even Bomac said it. Bomac has an interview, and he said, that's just Bob being Bob. You know, we know Bob's like that. And it is just like mind-blowing. And Errol Spence in this interview says, hey, that's what I didn't understand and I didn't get. And what makes this colder, this Errol Spence interview, is unlike when Crawford's man, Bernie, is doing interviews dissing Errol Spence, he's like turned up. Bernie's turned up, like, yeah, yelling in the camera and stuff like that. Errol is cool as a cucumber. He ain't really even raising his voice. You can't tell if he just finished working out or he just woke up or whatever. But the message, it's the words. People don't understand that sometimes having a cool, calm delivery gets your point across even like firmer. You know, the thing is, Errol Spence, he wasn't yelling. He wasn't like going out of his way to violate Terence Crawford. He's just saying, hey, how is it that if I say something, it's a whole Twitter rant? Or if another fighter says something, you act a certain way, but then your own promoter throws you under the bus and you just say, you know, it's just Bob being Bob. A lot of, you know, I guess questionable behavior from Bud Crawford, just on how he chose to handle that. To each his own. He's a grown man. He's a phenomenal fighter, so he can handle it how he wants. But it's just a bad look, him not getting the Pacquiao fight and then talking about it for years. And then meanwhile, Errol Spence ain't said nothing, and just Pacquiao announced the fight. And that's why he put hashtag blame Bob. You see that in the comment section. He said blame Bob, right? Crawford is now in Dubai, or was recently in Dubai. We'll see what his next move is. I don't know why the PBC would not be considered. It seems like the PBC fighters get treated with some level of dignity. I've never heard any PBC staff, Tim Smith, Brittany Goosen, Tom Brown, anybody, Samson, Lukowitz, Leonard Ellerby, anybody that works heavily with the PBC, I've never heard them denigrate or berate the fighters in the way of like, oh, I'm losing money with Terence Crawford. He's you know, a loss leader. I'm trying to type one-handed. Bob Arum, I won't lose any more money. These are the type of statements that he was saying. I won't lose any more money on Terence Crawford. Bob Arum has doubled down on his criticism of Terence Crawford, his financial performance amid talk of a Spence fight, right? So on top of getting fights that people feel are possibly lackluster, these are some of the comments. Crawford, he's got to promote himself like Teofimo Lopez does, who went to Triller. Shakur Stevenson does, like Mayweather did, Pacquiao did. If he doesn't, then who the F needs him? He may be the greatest fighter in the world, but hey, I ain't gonna go bankrupt promoting him. This is things that Bob Arum said, and this is why the world questioned Crawford not really responding. Shout out to Errol Spence being a real dude. He's tackling real issues, saying race matters. I knew this about Errol Spence. He's a stand-up brother. This is what Oscar De La Hoya said after the Mikey Garcia fight. He said, Errol Spence, congratulations on your victory. If you want to make real money, let me promote your next fight on DAZN. So Oscar was soliciting him, and you see Errol Spence's response. You don't treat black fighters well, brother. So he's saying thanks, but no thanks. I don't like the way Golden Boy has treated black fighters. So, you know, I'll hard pass on that. So Errol Spence been real. He's been for the culture. And we'll see. You know, we'll see what's next for Terence Crawford. I think he's a skilled fighter, but Errol has definitely lapped him in terms of fanfare, opportunity, probably like the money, the size of the purses. I don't see how at this point Crawford is going to expect to get 60-40 with Errol, especially if they reinstate Pacquiao. Use my link in the description to get TUBEBUDDY. TUBEBUDDY is an awesome browser extension to help you level up your YouTube content. Take that to the next level with TUBEBUDDY so you can make money on this platform like yours truly. I've been using TUBEBUDDY for years. Started off with 0 subscribers. We're over 200,000 and counting. We do our numbers. You can too. Use TUBEBUDDY to increase searchability and discoverability. It is the #1 tool for us YouTubers. Use my link in the description. Shout out to Errol Spence, link in the description. We working.